Okay, remember that they're changing my voice. This video is for the My Story playlist, and it's about a family meeting we had recently. So, the My Story playlist isn't in perfect chronological order or something, right? And it has to do with me remembering things later on and what have you. And if something important comes up, that I have to speak on it, even if some people think it's too personal or whatever. So it looks like we'll be moving out of the house, and what ended up happening is that I ended up prolonging my departure. Okay, so my plan is firmly, my plan A is um, to leave my house before my parents move out of it. Okay, well before, hopefully this week. Okay, and to drive around in an unpredictable manner, staying in various places, and to try to reach out to people and to record some of these interactions on camera so you can see for yourself the failure of humanity to respond. Because everyone with sense, I've talked to some people and they say, look, my argument makes sense. It's interesting. It's fascinating. It's deep. It's profound. The churches are shallow. Mosques and synagogues, they're just not up to par, right? Spar and par. They just don't understand this Royal African Falcon Martial Art Order. They don't have the depth of loyalty to God, to obey God through me, to answer God's commands through me. Some are racist, some are LGBT heavy, some are feminists. They have all kinds of props, right? Ethnocentrism, tribalism, what have it. And so, I wanted people to see how females react, right? I'm not going to use a hidden camera or anything. I'm going to explain it to them in a certain way that makes it easier for them to understand why I'm recording it. Or maybe I'll ask them if I can record it, but I want to catch them spontaneously so it's not staged or anything like that, so you can see for yourself for sure. And I'm sure you people trust me by now, but they might edit my videos in the future and twist that so you know. I want you to see the failure of attractive women yourselves. It doesn't matter if this is California, New York, or this is North Korea. When Christ is back, the most righteous person that ever lives, that should transcend whatever your philosophy is. Communism, Christianity, you name it. Buddhism, you name it. That should be all that matters. Virtue is greater than your theories on what religion you should choose, your personal sense of what religion you should choose. Okay, there's a bunch of crazy people all over the world, and there's a spectrum of being crazy. So why should you assume that your senses are based in reality? Okay, you should have the logic to know that the top martial artist ever possible has a better sense of these things than you do, and is set apart to get it right while you're just the average person, and maybe you're a crazy New Age person, crazy Christian person, crazy atheist, whatever it is. Maybe your life traumas, your complexes influence your thinking and your emotions. You don't understand brain wiring as much as I do. You don't look into people and understand them as much as I do. There's no scientist that understands brain function in terms of how it translates into where people are headed as well as I do. Because when I look at these things, the sum total experience I have is it makes it clear to me in a way that I'm the top martial artist, that I'm the wisest person, that my logical life path is superior. They don't truly understand and process the situation to the same degree that I do, not even close. And they choose down instead of up as a result. So we had a family meeting, and it was about 2 hours and maybe 20 minutes long. And there was a lot of, my older brother's a very angry person. My younger brother is, he kind of has Eastern philosophy. He has a philosophy that's very similar to the people around him, right? Whether he stays, in Berkeley or he stays in Northern California somewhere, wherever he lives at the time, it's usually a liberal place, and he has a very liberal kind of tech philosophy, okay? And he comes off as more reasonable than my older brother, but he comes off as, firmly on the kind of controlled opposition path of the world, where I come off as, firmly dedicated to what's right. To the point that, my own parents think that I'm going to die when I move out because they know that I'm dedicated to morality. Okay, and my older brother is he's like a military drill sergeant. He's probably about 25, 30 more pounds than I am, a little bit shorter. Okay, in some ways, it's like the character Blanca from Street Fighter 2, and I'm not trying to insult him or anything, just trying to explain the situation, right? Kind of Blanca mixed with Balrog and Zangief from Street Fighter 2, Tyson mixed with a hairy kind of person. Very argumentative. He raises his voice at my father, even though my father has a fragile heart condition and so on and so forth. My little brother tries to get in the way. Me and him have had our arguments, and him and my little brother didn't have our arguments so much, so I let my little brother kind of go there with him. He makes the absurd argument that I've put him through a lot of shit because when I'm fumed and poisoned in the morning, sometimes I'm angry and I'm kind of talking out loud and thinking out loud, and they're fuming me. Remember, I have 23 witnesses on record, and he knows. My mom has talked about fumes. I have her on record speaking about fumes in the house. Okay. He's noticed something like that. Okay. He blamed it on a bad air filter in my father's car. So again, before all this happened, my father's been through many cars, many vehicles, Bronco, Lincoln Town Car, Mercedes, you name it. All of a sudden, all three of the vehicles on our property have a problem with there being fumes in the car. How many of you think that's a coincidence? And I've been fumed in public and at the park and so on. How many of you think that's a coincidence? Well, it's fucking absurd to think that's a coincidence. All of a sudden, we weren't exactly masterfully maintaining our cars. I used to have a green Infiniti and a white Infiniti. They were hand-me-down cars from my parents before I had the Eclipse and the Ford that I have now. Those two cars had no problem with fumes in the car. The Eclipse started one day, started having a huge problem with fuming, and it carried on to the Ford. And my father has a Ford too, and it carried on. All these had it at the same time. I've never heard anybody in my life complain about fumes in their cars. I've driven in cars with other people, Hondas and all, you name it, Mercedes, Jeep Cherokee, you name it. Never in my life. It's clear that the government is doing it. But he chops it up to an air filter, right? So he obviously is a gang stalker and a government asset. All my family, is. So their testimony about me cannot be trusted. It must be taken with a grain of salt. They might say things that are true. Hey, he was born in San Jose. Hey, they're right about that. But you have to expect that they're going to try to, make their lives easier. Okay. And my parents, my little brother's a very likable guy, mind you. Okay. We just don't agree about key things. Okay. So that's why I say there's something to be said about my brothers, mostly for my little brother. My older brother, he's like an angry bully or something that means well. Okay. He said things to me that were outrageous, and I don't agree with him. He said that, when my martial art challenge, he tried to, when he was very angry, he's doing bad financially, refuses to get a part-time job, real estate agent, what have you. He was like, well, I'll fight you right now, because I need the bread. And he's not the first person to try to turn it into a fighting challenge. Again, I don't fight people in hand-to-hand combat. I fucking kill them. Okay? I strike them in the spine. I strike them in the fucking brain till they die. So no, I'm not going to fight you like some fucking pit fighter, some kind of blood sport worm, some kind of MMA fighter. That's not what I do. You see what I'm saying? But they use things like that after they fume me and cripple me to a large degree, and I have to wear glasses when I didn't wear glasses before. They do things like that, because they're on some knucklehead America conservative philosophy nonsense, which dominates both the major political parties here. Because conservatism is conserving white supremacy. Both parties do that. Conservatism is conserving old money. Both parties do that. Conservative in its heart is conserving the Freemasonic and social club and secret society and frat infrastructure that dominates American politics, and both parties do that, so they're both conservative where it matters most. Then there's a thin veil of liberalism, and that's why there's a donkey, because they try to play out the idea that you should do something different, so they use a donkey. And for the Republican Party, they use an elephant because the idea is they're moving too slow for white supremacy, right? That's the idea, because where are they moving toward? More white, Jewish, and LGBT slave master supremacy. You should all know I'm right. When you hear it that way, were you born yesterday? Duh. I've had white supremacists say to me, duh, in an angry way, okay? This is something that people from various races and political parties all agree on when they're being honest. There's no other way to look at it. Okay, so to make a long story short, as they're trying to fume and poison me and change the way I look to make it so I look gay, you can still tell it's me, especially with the tattoos and scars. These things can, they have the technology. They could fake me after I'm gone, so you must be very careful. Look at things in terms of what is precisely right. Okay, I'm not a womanizer. The person wants, a bunch of women all the time or something. Don't trust them. The person reinforces the state philosophy. Don't trust them. If the person, conforms to the church or mosque or synagogue, don't trust them. Hindu, Buddhist, don't trust them. Shinto, agnostic. If they change the argument of the Royal African Falcon Martial Art Order, don't trust them. Because these people love trying to make sages look ideal, Jews with a magic wand in the occult, English royals. If they do anything to make those people look good, do not trust them. Pretty straightforward, right? Watch for the signs. Even when you listen to my videos, you don't know if it's actually me making it. Listen to what I'm saying carefully. And don't use the Bible as your center point of reference. Okay? Use universal pinpointed moral precision as your way to understand what's right and what's true. And put what's right over the flesh of your families. If you have 100 kids, put God first. That's morally precise. Not saying, who could do that? No, but be morally precise. Put the principle first. So when they want to go to some place, I'm not going to tell you where it is yet. Okay? And I don't plan to move there with them. And I'll tell you why. I told the government, okay, you're eventually going to have to stop hacking my brain or I'm going to have to take action. Okay? One way or another. I'm going to have to take drastic action. Not necessarily violence, not necessarily suicide, but I can't go on this path. I'm not going to be your slave. And you're harassing me and you're racist white Jews and gays and you're token minorities and thugs and no higher cause. You're unsavory characters. I will never obey you. And if I see that you keep poisoning me and fuming me and trying to incapacitate me to make it so that I'm more malleable and more easily controllable, okay, I'm going to have to fucking do something. I'm going to have to leave this country. I'm going to have to make a big fuss. I'm going to have to do something. And if one day, it comes to a head and I have to die, then that's what I'm going to have to do. But under no circumstances am I going to conform. I am not going to be your slave. I have 23 witnesses. 23 witnesses. Before you say, well, he's saying things are alarming. Then why aren't you looking at this thing rationally in an objective manner? I have 23 witnesses. So if you're not going to honor the fact that I took the time to have 23 witnesses to prove my sanity, then why the fuck should I not see this as the hostile situation that it is? If the police break the law and play stupid and cause me harm, then they're my fucking enemy. Now, if you disagree, put in the comments. There's many of you are watching me. If you disagree, put in the comments. Let's talk about this in a calm and collective manner where you don't have to hear me yell if I get mad. You just put in the comments. We'll go comment for comment or whatever. But that line of thinking is sound. 23 witnesses, an unnecessary overkill. You can tell that I'm a rational and logical person, and I have 23 fucking witnesses. And that's part of the story. They know that. So I said, look, because I'm going to be 43 years old soon, and you cheated me so much, I'm going to need to not fall under 100,000. I think I made 120,000 because they kept pressing me the other day. So I said, okay, in that case, 120,000. So we'll call it something like that. 100,000, 120,000 or more. I can't fall beneath that number. So I have to be able to move around. I'm going to need you to stop telling women to shun me, so I'll eventually find an attractive, suitable helper. Even if you have to fucking order them to submit, so I pick one. Because if they're slaves anyway, they're purchased with the money, and they're purchased from their slave master with an agreement without me selling my soul, without me submitting, what have you. Without me doing anything that God would object to. Those are the requirements. If you make it so I look too gay, I can't move to a place that's too close to San Francisco or something because you're already trying to make it so I'm gay and you have gays harassing me and I'm keeping tabs of what you did to me. And I say, hey, when it comes to decisions like that, I can't do that because you're trying to make it so I seem gay. How the fuck I look moving to some kind of suburb of San Francisco or something, okay, whether it's in the East Bay, North Bay, whatever the fuck, is close to San Francisco and there's a bunch of gays there, especially who commute to San Francisco. Fuck I look like moving there. Hey guys, hi! Fuck all that shit. God is not gay, and I will not represent God as a gay spirit. No fucking way. Freedom of religion, freedom of expression, freedom of speech, freedom of assembly, no criminal record, No ties to terrorism on top of that. I shouldn't have to explain this to you fucking oppressors. So in the family meeting, they talked about the funding that was supposed to come, right? There's all these people in Europe, of all places, Europe. So if it doesn't go through, never forget that the white man, the Jew, and the LGBT community went the distance to betray Christ, and they hated their offspring so much that in reality, their genes contain the code of the scum who betrayed Jesus directly. Promising his family money, trying to keep him from looking good, so some arrogant English people, Germans, people like that, but yes, look how I look in a suit, yes, my church, and act like a bitch. Think about it. Would you want to be the offspring of such fucking scum? They need to scramble to do what's right, to reduce their pitiful genes to less pitiful. To make them, when I mean reduce, I mean to reduce the pitifulness of their genes. You see what I'm saying? And God wants them to scramble and obey God through me and make amends for their sins, to atone. Okay? And I don't give a fuck about money, but when you steal from somebody, you pay restitution. I don't give a fuck about a goofy, unruly bitch. But when attractive women shun me, they're supposed to come and submit. So I can try to make them something better than that. And purge the unruly, slutty ass, ditzy ass, conformist ass bitch from them. From their being, from their brains, from their souls, from their minds, from their bodies. These arguments are sound. I am the only person qualified to lead. Everyone else isn't man enough to obey God through me, therefore they're not qualified to lead. They're not in the repetition of obeying God through me, so they're not qualified to lead. Females who are attractive aren't qualified to lead themselves. In Proverbs 11:22, it says, an attractive woman who lacks good sense, who lacks the discretionary judgment of a sound mind, is like a gold ring in a pig's snout. Should that gold ring be wasted? Should they be allowed to be a pig running wild, causing people harm? The Bible says heartache crushes the spirit. And fear the Lord and the King, not break his heart. Why should your fucking feminine inclinations, why should your conformist, feel good, narcissistic, hedonistic inclinations transcend your duty to God's Son in your mind, in reality, you name it? That's breaking the greatest commandment. And it's a universal point. Fear being wicked. Okay? Fear offending God by being wicked. Fear offending the source of righteousness and principle by being wicked. Do not be wicked. Fear the consequences of breaking God's Son's heart by not submitting, so you can choose a suitable helper, a wife. Do not embrace your slutty, bad judgment, and you get some kind of witch, racist, Jewish, feminist slut who would say, that's her choice. There's a 50% divorce rate, lady. What don't you get? Women get date raped and beat. What don't you get? You are not doing them any favors by telling them to continue on their dangerous paths where they get beat for no higher cause. They get raped for no good reason. They get put at risk just to be the devil's helper. Shame on you, females. Okay, so real quickly, the issue of my big brother. He had the option to get a part-time job at Safeway or something. Okay, it wasn't interfering with his real estate business. I don't think he sold a house all year. And, he kind of unfairly blames his problems on other people. The government was going to sabotage my family, no matter what they did. They were targeting me and to some degree my brothers since I was a little kid. My little brother and I, from what I gather, were the main kind of victims of the targeting. But certainly my older brother had been through some shit too, Now, he had the option to, again, to get a part-time job and to finance a small home, right? So he could pay payments. Some of these places let you pay payments. So if you feel like, hey, I want to sleep in a place where his talking isn't going to interrupt me, because what happens is my room is like above his room, and I used to play music in the morning loud as a result of targeting and a lot of animosity that I had. And after they fumed all the rooms upstairs, In the morning, I go downstairs, right? Because I have eye problems, I go to sleep earlier, and I kind of historically am an early bird anyway, right? You know, the Horus and so on and so forth. And so, in Horus and hours and early bird, it all comes together in a certain way, right? So, I'd go downstairs in the morning. In the kitchen, I have all my notes and so on and so forth. And so, sometimes I talk to myself to some degree to kind of get my thoughts together. Like if I was doing this, I'll say, okay, let's see here. The domino effect of attractive females. Okay, point one, I'm going to do that. Right, so I say things like this, right? And sometimes I get mad, right? And I'm being fumed, so it reduces my reservations and inhibitions. So he's playing dumb about the fumes, and he also had the option. Speaking of that, some dude just drove by right now with his windows down. And yeah, as predicted, it's some fumes, right? But anyway, so yeah, the option to and again, when people drive by, there isn't a situation where even if they're a cop that I don't perceive myself to have the upper hand, right? If I really came down, I could kill them before they kill me. Might cripple myself, but I'd win that. So it's not, don't let that. When I talk in a certain way, it's to kind of let that situation pass with no conflict. So I say, I kind of calm down and say, okay, this guy's driving by right now or whatever. Okay, so anyway, so I talk to myself in a way that's understandable. If you look it up, intelligent people often talk to themselves, and because of the nature of the subject, right? I get mad at times, but I'd always make sure to not be too loud. And so my dad blends things in the morning, turns on the TV, doesn't bother him. So to some degree, they're either hacking his brain and causing it to be sensitive to me specifically, okay, or they're just telling him to kind of respond that way. So, and you can tell by his exact gestures and movements and everything that it has to do with him being a gang stalker. And also his refusal to get a job. So say he got a part-time job and he pulls in, $1,000 a month, take home, we'll say. And that means this year he would have made $8,000. He could have put down the down payment for like $1,000 on a house or something, it's a tiny home, okay, and $200-something a month some would go for. So he could easily afford that, and he had money in his pocket, And he could help my parents with the rent or whatever, right? And keep in mind, my family, my parents owe me like $52,000 right now. Okay. In back pay, and I pay something like $15,000 out of my pocket for groceries for the house and for, other people, right, other than myself. And so he's eating for free. He's staying there for free. Okay. And he's got the nerve to complain when he could, his rent could be like $1,200 the first month, and then like $219 just to build a house there, and then the property value would go up because that's another place for whoever buys the house to kind of rent out, right? And so, he refused to do that, right? And he's too proud. He says, I sell these, I could sell $4 million house and get like $50,000, right, in like a few weeks or something, right? So he's like proud, right? And when you look at his real estate career, okay, he's a good real estate agent. They're just suppressing him, right? But you got to factor that in when you're being realistic, right? And so, he's getting out of shape and so on and so forth. It's bad for him not to have the part-time job. So as time went on, his average, I'd say he brought in after taxes and after overhead, because he pays to advertise and stuff like this, he probably brought in like maybe, in the last 18 years or so, probably brought in an average of $11,000 take home. So when he was staying in San Francisco, my parents, according to them, they would send him like $5,000, but probably more like $3,000 or something, because he only paid $500 a month for a room in a house at that point in San Francisco. That's a story another day. He used to live with, and it's quite a story. But they were still sending him tons of money. He's buying a lot of alcohol. He's partying. He's going out and he's taking chicks on dates and da-da-da. Great, lovely, whatever. But they're not made of money, and he was fucking off tons of money. And there's one deal that he cites that they got him in the way of, and one time they brought him out to go house looking for homes, and he cites that. He's like, they called me all the way, and I went over there and he did some total work for them, maybe a couple days worth of work, and after years and years and years, and like 20 plus years of their medical company, right? And he's complaining about that like it held him down in life. He doesn't bring up all the money that they gave him, right? They've been carrying him this whole time. He only been bringing back $11,000 a year, and that's not even enough to pay his rent, right? So they've been paying that, You know what I'm saying? At some point, he bought them a car for like, oh, 15,000 or something. I don't know how much it costs, right? Their story kind of changes. And, you know, he lets them drive the car and so on and so forth, right? He acts like a jerk, so on and so forth. And, you know, to everybody, right? He's a very argumentative person. But right now they're mad at my dad. Well, my mom and my brother, who look more similar than my little brother and I, who look more like my father, are mad at my father and pressing him, while my little brother is like being very kind of Buddhist-like about it, very diplomatic, and he's being more reasonable because, you know, their philosophies are just kind of complain and give into your emotions more, and then they calm down once in a while and are act rational, where he puts an emphasis on being clear-headed. Where my philosophy is the greatest because it's righteous indignation. So I'm moving in a higher path, and my conclusions are pinpointed and moral. Okay, now when it comes to kind of no brain solutions, right? Hey, you know, move out over here, or let's save money by doing this. My little brother's pretty good at that. He's very good at that, right? And that's basically my family in a nutshell, in a sense, right? And so, you know, yeah. You know, he could have got the part-time job at Safeway or whatever. There's a lot of places still hiring right now, and he could have brought in that $1,000 a month. And that you know, if he did in the last 2 years, he would have went from like, because all this year he hasn't sold nothing. Okay, so he's at zero, and we're in month 9, right? If he continues this all year, he'll have made no money. And when you average it out, right, it's like $11,000 a year in the past 22 years, because you get like, you know, take home. If he sold a house for like $1 million, okay, it's actually more than that for the 4 million house, because $1 million, he gets like 22,000, and he has to pay taxes on it, right? And he has, you know, his own business and this, so he's got to pay some taxes or fees there, and some advertising and so on. So it really takes a lot out of him, and he's not selling. He'd be lucky to sell 2 homes in a year, and when he first started out, he wasn't selling like anything, okay? But he's, you know, he's very good at being a real estate agent, though. It's like the typical story of a black man, except for he's a brain-searching son, and he's smarter than you know everyone else in the real estate industry, basically. But he has a serious problem when it comes to emotions and anger. So he's not that, you know, he has a mouthpiece to some degree, but he, you know, there's issues there. I don't want to get too much into it. I want to put him on blast. No respect, no disrespect to him. Okay, I'll even say shout out to my older brother. You know, we have disagreements. Okay. And it breaks my heart that, you know, my brothers, okay, will say, to keep it simple and diplomatic, that they're at high risk of going to hell or not going to heaven, but being those who suffer the least of the people in hell for eternity because of my parents' attachment to them, because they're my brothers, because what good that they did do over the years. So I have to be fair to everybody, including my own family. So when I look at other people, as I have the most respectable family that ever lived, ever, at any point in history, I look at other people afraid to risk their families while I'm risking my brain searching humanitarian father, my brothers, my mother, the most righteous white woman ever lived, and I'm risking them, and they're going through hardship, and these people, these worms, are afraid to risk and to endanger their rebel, Satan-worshiping families, their families that don't have the heart to obey God through me. It is infuriating. Their families that never bore fruit. It is infuriating. I have no tolerance for that whatsoever. I've practiced what I preached every step of the way. You people aren't. And you think that you're magically going to be lifted to the heavens after my flesh dies? No, the world will go down to Hades. Isaiah 24 is also, you know, I agree with Isaiah 24. I agree with Isaiah 34. Read them carefully. The earth sinks, never to rise again. Okay? They're like dung on the ground, the walking dead. The nations are, you know, they're a stench to God, so to speak, right? And, you know, if you make other races and peoples poor and say, well, they're the ones who are smelly and they're more close to you, you know, it breaks my heart to not go there with black people, right? Because they've been through a lot. But they also cheated me out of my right to lead. I'm the fair judge. I'm impartial. I rule to please God, not for black supremacy or my family's supremacy. I rule in a way that's fair and just and right. Proverbs 16:10. Okay, one version of it is a divine decision given by God is on the lips of the king as his representative. His mouth should not be unfaithful or unjust in judgment. Christian Standard Bible. God's verdict is on the lips of a king. His mouth should not give in an unfair judgment. You think they're talking about the king of Jordan, no offense to him. Turkey, no offense to him. The king of England, no offense to him, we'll say for this video. No. They're talking about the one who's established in righteousness. It talks about the scales in the next verse. And in the verse after that, it says the throne is established in righteousness, New Living Translation, justice. So I'll make sure that we're clear on these things here. That I'm in the right. I'm not somebody who's just, you know, selfish and you know, I'm not selfish. I'm not someone just running his mouth in the morning saying, oh, fuck him, I don't care if he sleeps. Okay? He's someone who's inconsiderate. He's someone who has a temper problem. He has various problems I don't want to get into that cause him to have a temper problem. Okay? You know, he has relationship issues over the years, what have you, right? And, you know, people have problems. I don't give a fuck if he had 10 times the problems. I care that he lacks the discipline to obey God through me and to stand firm with me and to do what's right.